Wonderful things going on over here as we continue our conversation about species in Star Trek and how you can add them to your Star Trek Adventures game to create a rich world building experience. One of the things I want to talk about last show, Aaron was telling us a little bit about the binary stars that in which, but why can't I think of the planet now? Oh,
Tellar Prime.
Tellar Prime go around, and he shared us some amazing pictures off Wikipedia. And I had to say, one of the things I'm going to be doing at the end of October, I would have been back from this trip by the time I get back, by the time this airs, but we'll be going to Joshua Tree in order to observe the stars. Me and the wife are going to go stargazing in Joshua Tree, California, which is amazing because the ability to watch stars and watch them move the sky is amazing. Now, I'm Michael Dismuke. Everyone saw me last week. Blogger here, Continuing Missions, co-host with Jim Johnson on Continuing Conversations, which is everything Star Trek's and Captain's Log. I'll let Jim introduce himself in a second because I have to say to Aaron on this subject, I know you're like an astronomer yourself, right? You have a telescope and all that stuff?
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's amazing. And you take don't you take pictures? I think you've sent us some pictures before.
I have taken really rudimentary pictures through my telescope. I don't have a proper mount for my camera on it. Okay. And yeah, long story. But yeah, I actually can get my cell phone camera up to the lens and get some decent shots because I've taken some shots through it during the last solar eclipse.
Okay. Yeah. Because it took me years to realize, I'll be honest about this, it took me years to realize that many of the stars in Star Trek and many of the species are based off of real stars.
Mm-hmm.
And the species. And I think that's kind of cool. I think that's actually super cool. So our imagination can go wild. But before we go even deeper into it, let me introduce Jim Johnson.
Hey, everybody.
This is the weirdest introduction ever.
That's all right. Hey, everybody. Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG and the Captain's Log Solo RPG, both published by Mid-Advious Entertainment, and co-host on this here show with Michael these many, many years and many episodes now. And excited to be talking about Andorians and Aenar tonight. And we have a special guest with us once again. Aaron, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Aaron Pollyea. I'm a longtime writer for Star Trek Adventures. I'm typically your starship science technology type guy, but yeah, I write a lot of different things.
Yeah. So let's start at top. Is there a star called Andor in the sky? We know that Tellar is based off of Cygni proper, right?
61 Cygni, but 61. It's Procyon. Andoria is supposed to be around a gas giant around that is orbiting Procyon.
Okay, part of the constellation.
That would be Canis Minor.
I know. Isn't that amazing? You could all look this up. It's really, really cool stuff to just imagine what's going on out there. So let's lead us off, right? Jim, talk to us a little bit about the Andorians and the Aenar. Give us a 1,000-foot level on them before we dig into how best we might, not how best, ways you might bring these characters into the game.
So Andorians, not so much the Aenar, but the Andorians are one of the founding species of the Federation. They are most prominent in Enterprise. Yep. Commander Thoravik from the Quick Start and from the starter set, and is a key character. I love the fact that we put a mohawk on him. I thought that was something we hadn't seen before. So why not have an Andorian with a mohawk? So the Andorians are passionate. They're aggressive. They're very I don't want to say militant, but I guess that's a decent enough word for them. And I think Shran is a great example, probably the best example we have in canon. Although Prodigy's Janeway's first officer is a pretty cool Andorian as well. But other than that, I think there was a fake one in the original series where one of the antenna broke off and they turned out to be a fake. But like the Tellarites that we talked about last week, the Andorians, there's some stuff about their culture, especially via Shran, but I still think there's a lot of empty space and blank canvas that a player character could really play with it. That being said, though, the novels, especially some of the more recent novels in the Deep Space Nine relaunch that happened in the late late 2000s. They got really into the whole Andorian multiple gender storyline about how their culture was dying, and they had four genders, and they were trying to work that out and try to figure things out. So there's some great Andorian characters in the books. So if you want to mine memory beta for some great information, there's a lot of stuff there, and we touched on it a little bit in the role playing game. We didn't dive into it as much as the books did. Certainly, in fact, I think one of the books, I don't remember which one, maybe Worlds of the Federation, one of the Worlds of the Federation books, there's like a whole appendix about the four genders of Andorians and how they all interconnect and interrelate. So there's a wealth of secondary canon about Andorians, certainly. But if you're a purist and want to go just with canon, blank, largely blank slate, other than what we've seen from Shran for the most part.
Yeah, or if you're a new player of the game and you don't have a lot of time to go back
Yeah.
and look at all that secondary stuff, make it up yourself. Have
sure.
fun with what little you know, creating your own world. Aaron, what's your 1,000-foot level on the Andorians?
I always saw them as like, I love them in Enterprise, and I really didn't see them as warlike, more passionate, that they were just a very forward with their emotions, which is what made them natural enemies to the Vulcans. They were very more open than humans were, but they saw kinship in humans in that, like, humans weren't afraid of expressing themselves.
Yeah.
So
You had me at enemies to the Vulcans.
well, it's Vulcans are, if you look at the original series and the original movies, Vulcans are not emotionless. They have emotions. They're just suppressing them. They're much more logical, but they've been written in a different way over the past couple decades, where they're a lot less logical and more antagonistic towards everyone else around them.
Yeah. Now, Andorians, see, I actually, if it was up to me, I'd rather be in a bar fight against a Klingon than an Andorian. I find the Andorians far more intimidating than Klingons, and I really wish Enterprise showed it, but I really wish we would show how Andorians stake their claim on their part of space. Because basically, to keep off the Vulcans and to kind of keep them at bay for so long, to have the Vulcans really scared of them, that's a pretty tough society. So, what do we know, or where could we go with Andor as a culture before Vulcans were even involved? I'm going to ask the same question I asked last time. Were they in space before the Vulcans?
Again, assumptions. I would assume they're not, because everything that we have learned about the Vulcans say that the Vulcans have been in space since around like the 4th century, common era. So that's a really long time, and we don't really see them. We don't hear about them being involved in the conflict between the Vulcans and the Romulans when the Romulans originally left Vulcan. We just don't hear anything about that. So we have to assume, again, an assumption, that they were not in space before the Vulcans.
Okay, I believe that's more likely than the Tellarites not being in space before the Vulcans. I think the Tellarites may have been somehow in space. Plus, let for those who don't know, Andor's planet, what is it like? What we know from canon?
Well, what we see in canon is that it's an icy world, but no class, and it's considered a class M planet. So no class M planet is going to be a mono ecology. It's not going to be only ice. It's not going to be only forest. So it's just that it looks like Andoria is going to be a colder world for class M. There likely are traditional cities, or like old cities that are built in areas that are glaciated. But there would have to be open oceans. There would have to be like actual forested or pastoral type areas on Andoria. It's just that they really aren't well settled that we see on screen.
Yeah, I always envision kind of like the coniferous forests of northern Canada, kind of like that with the wolves and the elk and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, assuming that it has large ice caps, much larger than Earth's, and that they extend quite a ways down. So That's fine, as long as you do realize that there still would be deserts, there still would be forests, swamps, things like that.
So the big question is, of course, what are those antenna for?
Senses. I mean, that we do hear that a lot in Enterprise and even Discovery. That yeah, they're just extrasensory type things. It's not vision, it's not hearing, it's whatever sense that the Andorians call it.
Well, a lot it does attribute to balance. So balance
Mhm,
and equilibrium is talked about, and if they do lose one, it can get cut off. They will be dizzy for a while, a couple days maybe, but they
mhm,
can actually until they get their new sense of balance. But they can actually regrow their
mhm.
antenna too, which is kind of spooky. Yeah, it must hurt to get one cut off and all that good stuff. Now that's Andorians, just some general stuff about Andorians. But then we hear about the Aenar that look a lot like them. Jim, who are these Aenar?
Yeah, the Aenar are a subspecies, I guess, of the Andorians, and they are not well. Canon doesn't give us a huge amount of information, but a lot of them are blind, and a lot of them have additional psionic or extrasensory perception, heightened senses. Effectively, they are from a remote part of their planet, so they are similar to Andorians, but they are their own thing. And I mean, obviously, we've got Strange New Worlds season one with the Hammer being a great example of that. I wish we had seen more of him. I thought he was a
Mhm.
great actor, great character. But there's also, I think the Aenar were introduced in Enterprise. Actually, there's a couple episodes with the
Mhm.
Aenar. Um,
They
yeah,
were
yeah, gosh,
excellently represented.
you gotta appreciate all the efforts that Enterprise was trying to make to like
It
set the
was.
groundwork for everything that we knew. But
And again, now we get to do a little bit of riffing since we mentioned the Aenar. I personally think that's why the Vulcans don't like the Andorians because Vulcans wanted to be like they wanted to corner the market on telepathy, and I
mhm.
think they were afraid that the Aenar might uncover some of the things we know for a fact from Enterprise they were doing. So I think that that's part of the antagonism with the Andorians and the Vulcans.
Yeah, I think that the Vulcans are touch telepaths. The Aenar are not. They actually can
That's
can
right.
sense thoughts at distance. So of course the Vulcans would feel threatened by that because now the Aenar know that they do have emotions, that Vulcans are suppressing emotions, that they do feel things that they might not be trying to show or communicate.
And that
So
they're being dishonest in many cases.
Exactly, because it would come across as being dishonest, especially if both the Andorians and Aenar prize passion and showing emotion, where the
Yeah.
Vulcans are trying to hide that all.
Yeah, I want to apologize to any Vulcans out there because, as you can see from the last two episodes, plus if you watch the podcast, I do have a thing against Vulcans. But
And I love Vulcans. I absolutely love Vulcans, but yeah, it's there are certain Vulcans that are portrayed on screen that are very clearly the antagonists of the story.
good. So now let's go ahead and talk about the Andorians again as a trait. We talked a little bit about how I really think traits are the big part of Star Trek Adventures 2E. When you're trying to use a trait in Star Trek Adventures 2E, whether positively or negatively, if you have the trait of Andorian or Aenar, we can cover both of those, however,
Mhm.
how might those appear for a player as a benefit or as a complication?
I think as a benefit and a complication is loyalty, right? Because we see Shran being incredibly loyal to Archer, and his word is law. Like he will keep even to his own detriment, which is the drawback. But also that loyalty might spur you on to be to greater action as well as like a benefit. It might push you further than you might normally go. That sort of loyalty.
Would that not be more of a value though?
I don't know. I think it comes across as different than a value, at least in my remembering of Enterprise. Now it's been a couple years, but it seems like if Shran even promised that, like the rest of his crew were along for the ride because they were loyal to Shran and yeah, it feels like it's much more than a value that they actually have this sort of passion for loyalty and promises that your word means something as a culture overall.
Would that make the assumption that all of them are like that though?
Yeah, it is an assumption. but it seems like it's a very, very strong through line through most of the Andorians that are shown in Enterprise.
Yeah, yeah. What little we've seen, I agree.
Yeah.
What little we've seen. I want to encourage players, though, if you want to play a disloyal Andorian, that's okay too. And you probably should have a value to that fact. Just in case, again, as you're world building, you may say, well, no, that's what we saw in Enterprise. Maybe the loyal ones are conscripted into the military. But what about all the Andorians that are not part of the military? What
Mhm.
is their culture like? Because military culture is definitely way different than civilian culture, right?
Mhm. But I would also say is like in survival situations, Andorians are used to colder weather overall, but they might really feel awful on Vulcan-like conditions, even though they're
There
both
we go.
Class M planets, right?
Yes.
Vulcan is generally just warmer.
Yeah, that to me as a trait would seem really like great. Like cold planets, you get bonuses, hot planets, not so much, or their antennas in places where equilibrium is challenged. Maybe, the gravitic plates go out, but you can maintain your balance without them because of so maybe Aenar, Andorians or Aenar, if you're a player, you can write that in and say, actually, I think I'm better with balance or going over this balance beam. I get a bonus because of
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
antenna. Right, Jim? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, or even if they're on a ship or something, and the zero G, or I mean, the gravity goes out, and then the lights go out, right? And then they're literally floating in space, and the Andorians just might have a slight advantage in being able
Mhm.
to orient where they are just by their antenna and their nature. There's some possibilities there. Certainly the balance aspect. You talked about the cold and the heat and the weather. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to play with Andorians, not just physically, but also just with that little bit of ESP. I mean, it's not for Andorians, it's not so much, but Aenar definitely. But
Mhm.
and now I'm just excited about this idea of having a ship. All the lights go out, gravity goes out, and your Andorian character, like Thoravik, is is holding things together because he's the one who's able to know where he is in the space of things.
Mhm.
Um, we may have to drop that into the game somewhere, Michael. In our
Yeah,
campaign. I don't know.
I was just watching Farragut Forward,
Uh,
the fan production, and they actually have a navigator that is Aenar or Andorian. So that could
Mhm.
be, give them extra spatial awareness and make them excellent navigators in
nice.
in some circumstances too, right? That's promoting that show, by the way. It was amazing fan fiction. We're going
Yeah.
to be
Mm.
having that person come on our show soon, Johnny Karzai,
Nice.
to talk
And
about his show.
Aaron, when you were talking about just how the Andorians and Shran were so loyal to Archer, like that intensity, right? Like Nathan wrote intense as a species ability for the Andorians, and I almost wonder if you could almost use that as a role playing. I mean, it's a species ability and it helps you in specific things, but I could very easily see that being turned into a kind of a role playing thing where you're attempting tasks being an intense Andorian, but you can put a role playing filter on that to say, oh, I succeeded at this task related to Archer because I'm so fiercely loyal to Archer and I'm really intense about it, and
Mhm.
you're earning that bonus momentum, and that just turns into an interesting engine of mechanics for you.
Yeah,
And I
narratively, I like that. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say there's other beta canon that talks about like Andorian clans and this really complex family structure because of the four genders. And I think the whole like loyalty thing with that it sort of it does fit into that you're loyal to your clan, you're loyal to your four gendered pairing for producing offspring, you're loyal to the people that you make promises to. Um, I don't know. For whatever reason, I think that there's a lot of beta canon that also feeds into it.
Have
Yeah.
we seen any part Andorian, part human, part Vulcan? Have we ever seen a mixed species with Andorian? Because you
I
bring
don't
up a lot of good points with the clan. Like, how would a mixed species Andorian work in
I
in the
don't
family
think we've
environment?
I don't think we've ever seen that on screen. I could be
Or
wrong, but I don't think we have.
yeah, or at least it hasn't been confirmed on screen. I have to wonder if the lower decks character Jennifer Sharayan, I almost wonder if she's half Andorian, half something else, because Jennifer is a very unusual name.
Right.
Mhm.
Andorian. Not to say that it's bad, right? Because like all names are idic and everything, but I almost wonder if she's got mixed heritage going on somehow. But no, as far as I know, we haven't seen a mixed heritage Andorian as yet.
That would be fascinating because then you really have to explore themes of family structure,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's the interesting character. And I'm actually, my mind's riffing right now on ways you could go with that. Like that's almost a richer family history than Worf, if you think about it.
It's funny you
Mhm.
bring up Worf because like I know that what we know about the Andorians is they've got a certain amount of personal honor and very firm beliefs about that, and they've got their Ushan ritual with the ice picks and the ice blades, and they've probably got other traditions based around rituals and family rituals and that kind of thing. I think pairing up an Andorian and a Klingon, I bet two-player characters, one playing an Andorian, could create some really cool conversations about like honor and tradition and rituals and all this kind of stuff. And I love the idea of it. I don't know if I'd ever be able to do it, but like
Uh,
having the Andorians come at something with their rituals and their belief system, and then having the Klingons coming at it from a different perspective, and they're like
Mhm.
they're similar but they're different, and I'd love to see how that played out.
yeah, I've been waiting, in the Kittimer Accords mission brief pack that I wrote. It's free again. You can get on Modifius.net. I created an entire mission brief about the Klingons competing with the Andorians for Herc leftover Herc technology. And the reason I was to that point, Jim, is I think that they would really get along. I think Andorians and Klingons generally would get along with their sense of honor and loyalty. And if they ever did have a disagreement, oh my goodness, what a fight you'd have between Batliths and Ushans.
Mhm.
And that's why I created that mission brief because that's something that's never been explored. And I'm just like, I think so many people will want to see that clash.
Mhm.
Boy, I
especially
stunned
if
them.
you,
I
especially if you
stunned
have
them.
a especially if you have a Tellarite kind of like playing both sides and making the argument like who's right, who's wrong, or like
Mhm.
providing a third perspective. And you got these three very passionate characters
Mhm.
coming at it from different angles. That would be a fun scene to write. I mean, not much less see it acted out.
Right. And I think going to the Andorians too, I think we've never seen on screen what they look like at the government center. Like we've seen the Klingons, we've seen
Mhm.
the Vulcans, we've seen the Romulans, we've seen the humans.
Mhm.
We've seen so many in the regal government areas. And I think like an ice castle built into a cliff on Andor. And what did their ruling class look like? I just
Mhm.
picture it being like, yeah, you walk in there and it's cold, but everyone's just regally dressed.
Mhm.
And it's just so beautiful and expansive, overlooking like this glacial thing. I think there's so much world building to happen there.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've written a lot that the Andorians have like a monarchy of some sort, that there's some sort of ruling clan. I know I've written a lot about like the imperial shipyards that are in the Andorian system, but um I totally see your idea there, Michael. I would even say like, what if the Andorians, because of this whole like loyalty and clan system, what if the inside of this wonderful like castle that's in the side of a mountain that's surrounded by glaciers is nothing but warmth
Right?
and flowing fire, and this is the monarch, this is the ruling clan welcoming you into their home. Here it's warm, here
Correct.
we you are loyal to me for protection, for warmth. This is symbolic in this
Yeah.
way,
And,
like
and am I
sharing this.
and am I right? Believe Andor is actually a moon. It's not
Yeah.
actually a planet, right? So it circles its main planet, correct?
Yes, it's a large planet-sized moon of a gas giant that would, yeah, that's
Oh,
orbiting somewhere in the habitable zone of Procyon. Um,
how beautiful is that?
well, there'd likely be nightly massive aurora borealis,
Yes, yes,
because a
exactly.
gas giant's always going to have, well, not always, but it's likely going to have a very, very strong magnetic field that's accelerating, you know,
You could almost
particles.
you could almost hear that too. I don't know if anyone here has ever. Well, I think both of you are from snow country. But if you go up to Tahoe and it's really, really cold, there's actually a sound that emanates from the snow.
Mhm.
And imagine a world where there's always this small sonic hum.
Mhm.
Wouldn't that just be beautiful if you set the stage for an adventure on Andor?
Well, and theoretically, Aurora also do that. They also
That's right.
can make noise. Mhm.
That's right.
And
So-
that might be something that the Andorians and the Aenar can pick up with their
Mhm.
antenna. And maybe there's a certain level of comfort to coming home and feeling that subconscious hum, or that sub vocal, whatever. Yeah, and just for what it's worth, Andor is the planet, Andoria is the moon.
Mhm.
That they
Got it. So they're from Andoria.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. My mind is still riffing off other stuff I could do. I could do it, but I want to invite again game masters and players, to understand that there's what I like about using established species from Star Trek that don't have a lot of canon is you can get a lot of visuals for them online. And so a player who really wants to make their thing rich, they can say, okay, let me type in Andoria, and then all of a sudden they have like some stories, but they can connect a lot of tissue, and it makes the other players buy in faster, as opposed to say creating your own species from scratch.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, just listening to you two talk, I was thinking about how their military was called the Imperial Guard, and that makes me think, okay, so they're an empire. And then I was thinking about the fact that they have four genders, and they also have complex family structures. So who leads the empire? Is it an emperor? Is it an empress? Is it a group of, like, is the high family all interconnected and interrelated, and they all have similar titles, and it's like a triumvirate or a quadruple leaders or something? Like, what does that look like? It could be a way for a player to take the Andorians and just put a fresh spin on it, so it's not just an emperor or it's not just a Napoleon or not just a Cleopatra. It's a group. It's like almost like Rome, right, when they had the triumvirates ruling together. Like, maybe there's some other thing there. And what kind of political machinations can you have going on with all the different families and clans and genders and all this other stuff? And there's all
And
kinds of
Empire also suggests that it was multiple stars.
Yeah.
Like they had multiple star systems under their control, even by the time of Enterprise.
Right. So is it possible maybe the ruling class is one of each gender, and then the fifth is an Aenar to break the tie?
That's a fun idea.
Possible. Yeah, that's possible.
Interesting.
That would be kind of cool, right? Because now the Aenar, I can't remember, were they a discriminated branch of the Andorians, or were they just in seclusion by themselves, almost like a religious order?
I think that's an open question. I think they were more not isolated, but they were more what's the word? They were intentionally isolated. They were more, because they're more pacifists than not. So that's a very different approach than your typical Andorian. So they may have maybe there was a split at some point, and the Aenar said, you know what, we don't want to deal with all this, and we're just going to go live on the steppes and in our respective ice cottages or whatever, and do our thing. But I like your idea, Michael, of maybe there's a not a I don't even know what you would call it, but like, yeah, an advisor attached to the imperial royal family or whatever.
A seneschal.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there you go.
That would be a good one.
What does that mean, seneschal?
Just like an advisor.
That's cool.
Just a good word.
And kind of to break the tie again. So I think there'd be some interesting politics happening. And if you get one representative gender, each one has to be from a different family, part of the empire, and then you have the fifth one, the Aenar. You can create all kinds of political intrigue in there and bring that starship in to help out with something, much like they come in to intercede with Klingon houses oftentimes. Right? There's a lot to happen. I just think Aenar or Andorian culture is very beautiful and needing to be explored.
And in TOS, you get the Andorian like starships that are just like likely one big clan on the inside. Like it's just one big extended family that are all working together. Yeah, they might be distantly related, but let's just say they're all from one clan.
Oh, which is perfect question. Let's talk about them. What technology did Andor bring into the Federation? Do we know that?
I don't think we have anything in canon for that, but likely weapon systems. Likely weapon systems. Because everything that we see in Enterprise, the Andorians seemingly are armed to the teeth.
Yeah. And maybe fast, rapid response ships. Their ships were amazing looking. They look way more aerodynamic than the Federation ships. And so now I'm going to go back to last week's episode with the Tellarites. Is it possible that the Tellarites, because they were such a trade union, are the ones who introduced transporter technology to the Vulcans?
It's possible.
And the Andorians' rapid ships, because Vulcan ships looks kind of aerodynamic like Andorian ships.
Yeah, but Vulcan ships also use ring drives, ring warp drives. So, and the Andorians don't. Neither do the Tellarites. So it's possible that there was contact between the Andorians and Tellarites, even if that they traded technology, where or maybe the Vulcans just refused to trade technology with these Andorian people that are clearly crazy because they're so angry all the time. And then the Tellarites were like, well, I guess we'll take up the slack because the Andorians are actually kind of nice. Sure, they're wrong with what their government is and all their policies, but at least they're less wrong than the Vulcans.
And in TOS, correct me if I'm wrong, this is going back. In TOS, the Andorians were battling it out against the Tellarites, right? Was that in TOS? Because Babel, the episode Babel?
Well, we don't really know because the Andorian delegate was an imposter, and we don't really know what everything was going on. You would have to think that with the founding members of the Federation being somewhat close together, that there would be competition between all of the founding members and any kind of like high resource world that's in that little bubble.
Yeah.
Or access to it.
I would love, I know, Jim, we've been being able to play STA2E. I would love to go back and play Shran's spaceship. I would love to go back in Enterprise era and do more Shran. I think that would be fascinating RP, like around this world building. You're like, okay.
Yeah, no, I think that would be fun. I didn't have anything to add, Michael. Sorry.
It's okay.
Enterprise era is fantastic. There's just so much possibility in the lead up to the Earth Romulan War and how everyone worked together in the end to like defeat the Romulan menace. I don't know. There are so many stories to tell, and obviously there's been a lot of novels written about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a role playing game, just leading up to it, not the war itself, just the lead up to it. So much potential there.
Exactly. Yeah. And then again, Aenar, the first time we actually see them joining a ship is Strange New World. So it makes sense that some of them chose to leave this enclave on Andoria. And again, these are telepath. They're blind on top of it too. So exploring playing a character without their vision, but all the extra senses is something that some players may want to do. I mean, some players come out of playing superheroes and Dungeons and Dragons, and they kind of want a character with a little bit of superpower. And to me, that would be a good choice for an Aenar if you really want to explore that kind of, telepathy and empathy and things like that. But Aenars themselves are only a small percentage of the population, so there wouldn't be a lot of Aenars out there, correct?
Yeah, they are a very small percentage. I even think they might have mentioned how few Aenar there are left in Strange New Worlds, and there aren't many.
Oh, I'm going to have to go back and watch that. I didn't catch.
It may have come up in one of those 2 episodes of Enterprise as well, where you see the couple of Aenar characters. But I don't remember Hammer mentioning it, but he might have. I'd have to go back and watch Strange New Worlds again.
Yeah, I just remember in Enterprise, they were fantastic. I don't know if you remember the story. Sorry, spoiler alert. But the Romulans had captured this Aenar brother and sister couple, or the brother, and they had hooked him into the navigational system of their ship. And a navigational system back on Romulus. From Romulus, he could actually remote control this amazing attack ship. That's how powerful the telepathy was from this guy. So they're not your standard, as Aaron said, touch telepathy like the Vulcans. These Aenar are pretty powerful. And that's why I think they maybe had a guiding hand in Andoria's expansion and ruling class. They're not out there. They're so powerful influencers. They don't need to be out there talking to people. So I think that alone would be amazing to explore.
I think it's Enterprise that mentions there's only a couple thousand left.
Wow. that alone, the preservation of the Aenar could be its own story. How to expand them out. And they were not mentioned, Jim, in the series where you talked about Andorians having the procreation problems. Aenar are not mentioned in that.
Are you mean in the book series? I
Yeah.
honestly don't remember. It's I'd have to go back and look. It's possible that series came out before Enterprise and before the Aenar were even introduced. I don't remember though. I'd have to go back and look at my my notes and try to remember how the timeline worked out.
Isn't it amazing how there's never enough time to tell all the stories that need to be told in Star Trek?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so irritating, isn't it?
I mean, it's a good problem to have. It just shows you how vast the tapestry is, right? And how much how you can do so much and you're not going to get it wrong, right? There's no wrong answer here, especially with the Andorians, the Aenar, and the Tellarites. There's just not a lot of canon to really get wrong, right? So new players who think they just look cool, make it up, like you were saying earlier, Michael. Just make it up, do something cool with it, and have fun.
Yeah. For those of you who picked up the quick start guide, there's, a Tellarite and an Andorian in it, plus one of one of the major species, it seems. But again, with Tellarites and Andorians today, which we're talking about, you can do so much. And GMs out there, don't be cannon hogs. Don't be grognards. Don't be like, well, no, I can't. Honestly, you're not getting paid for it. Let your players create the character they want to create. It'll only
Mhm.
make it richer. And if they say something that conflicts with canon, then you need to have a yes and attitude. It's like, okay, both can be true. Now, if you're a really creative writer, you'll figure out how. Right. And that's what we're challenging people with, these quick start characters. Just have fun with them. I'm having fun introducing it to new players, and they're having a ball playing these characters. Any last wind Andorian level, Aenar level advice, Aaron and Jim?
Have fun with it. Like just find weird human traditions that revolve around like wintertime that aren't necessarily religious. Like, I love the picture of the Andorians and the Klingons ice hockeying. That's great. Find things like that and just run with it. What do Andorians love about Earth culture? And grab onto that, maybe twist it into some sci-fi way and go forward. Hey, hey, ice skating, that in general, like ice ballet, what do Andorians do that is similar to that?
Ice fishing.
Yeah. Or maybe carving huge structures in the ice using those like melty worm things, the lava worm things that burn right through the ice.
Oh, I forgot
Why
about
don't they
those. Those were
use
cool.
them like as herding them around to produce giant geometrical structures in the ice sheet? That might be
Wow.
something cool.
That's a great idea. I could just see like an Andorian doctor on the ship who keeps some of those, and then it somehow plays into an episode where the characters are on an ice planet away team. They can actually breed their lava worms and bring them down to the away team. That's cool. Jim?
Yeah, I say again, like you guys are saying, have fun with it. Do something creative and fun. Do some research maybe into Earth cultures, especially that had real strong aspects of personal honor and some degree of weapon prowess, not necessarily military prowess, but that blades are important to them or weapons are important to them, and they're like into the personal development, physical development, and using weapons as an extension of their body. Like think about the samurai and the Vikings, and I mean, there's tons of examples, I'm sure, and like twist it, like put a spin on it, make it sci-fi, make it Andorian, and then bring it in to your character and make it cool and different. I was just thinking about riffing and saying, when the Andorian Imperial Guard joined Starfleet, I can maybe envision them being kind of like the experts at they've got unique talents in like ground combat and personal combat, and they could be like, hey Makos, let's act as advisors for you, and we're going to teach you how to level up a little bit here so that you can more effectively if you encounter Klingons or Orions or something out there, you have a better chance of doing. I can see them being like an advisory role for a while to help train up the Makos if needed. And
We
then
kind of saw that in Strange New Worlds in the episode with the Doctor. Remember, he had that Andorian sergeant, or I forget who it was, but it was a cool character in Strange New Worlds when the Doctor and the nurse were flashbacking to their time
Oh, right.
And that was an amazing. I was like, oh, give me more of that character. He was really cool.
Yeah, Starfleet Marines are probably going to, at least in TOS type era, Strange New Worlds, are probably going to be Andorians. They're likely the burliest type people that are in the Federation at that point.
Yeah, their survival skills have got to be on hit since they were on an ice planet. Anything less than an ice planet is like, oh, we got this.
Right? Unless it's Vulcan-like, and then they're like, nope, done.
Yeah,
done.
We don't even know what Andorian cuisine is like, do we?
No,
see?
Really.
Ah, see that they must have the best sushi. You can't cook it.
Yeah, we don't see them eating much on Enterprise. I'm sure there has to have been a scene with Shran having dinner with Archer.
I think he only drank. I'll have to look back. I think he was.
Watch it again.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to look back.
Oh no, we have to watch Star Trek. Oh no.
Oh no.
Because I was gonna say we actually see Tellarites eating way more in like the 2 episodes that they're in on Enterprise, which is weird. And they hint at dogs being eaten on Tellar, which is strange.
Right.
But anyway, it's weird that we don't see Shran really eating or drinking more.
Well, it's for everyone to know. If you want to do this, I always go into Memory Alpha. I type in the name of the character and I look at the list of episodes they were in. And I've watched, like, for instance, I've gone through and watched Deep Space Nine only by certain characters: Garrick, Quark, Dax. And it's a really fun way to get or Kai Wynn. And it's a really fun way to like really get a character. So Shran, I'm telling you, is one of the best watches. If you just watch Enterprise Shran episodes, you're going to fall in love with the guy. And of course, it's because Jeffrey Combs, right? He's just such an amazing actor, and he's in every single Trek series besides TOS. Yes, he's even in Lower Decks, people. All right, that's my favorite Andorian. So, I may stay up tonight and watch a couple episodes. Cool. All right. So let's go around. Everyone good with Andorians and Aenar, how we might use them in stories? There's a lot of world building to happen there. Some of the coolest characters. Let's go around and do a little gratitude. I'm sorry, I'm giving second week of gratitude to Enterprise again and Jeffrey Combs, who made Andorians probably. Am I going to say my favorite species in Star? No, I'll say my second favorite species in Star Trek. My first favorite species are Cardassians. We could do a whole show about them, and we will. But Andorians are my second favorite species in Star Trek because of Jeffrey Combs and Shran. Aaron and then Jim, take us out.
I will say I'm going to give credit to like Strange New Worlds and Hemmer, because while Hemmer was only in a very little, well, too little in my opinion, because what a great character. When he was there, it was solid, and I wanted to learn more. Give me more. And well, plot happens. But yeah, I have to give Strange New Worlds credit where credit's due.
Very good. Jim?
Yeah, and just to expand on that, I just pulled up Memory Alpha because of course I did. Shran was only in 10 episodes of Enterprise. So I mean, Enterprise was like 4 seasons, 26 episodes a season. So that's what 100 and something. So he was in less than 10% of the series, but he had such an impact because of course Jeffrey Combs is Jeffrey Combs, and it's he was so well written, right? And they gave him a lot to do. So there's some great material there to look at. And then of course Hemmer, I think he was only in like 4 or 5 episodes. Not counting the cameo in the first episode where he beams onto the ship in the last 30 seconds or whatever, and that's it. But so even with those limited amounts of screen time, there's a wealth of material that you could base a character on, and then expand it from there. So my gratitude goes to the writers of Enterprise, the writers of Strange New Worlds, and especially the actors Jeffrey Combs and Bruce Horak, who played Hemmer. Great stuff.
Excellent. All right, thank you all for joining us for this Andorian episode. IDIC.
I was on mute again, sorry. Live long and prosper, be safe, be well. We'll talk to you next time.
See you later.